councillors in the world of live streaming. Obviously, just a reminder that councillors are intent on being open, and this is part of that process. These meetings up to live streaming processes. So the link obviously is available to access for each meeting on the council's website, and the stream will end when a council enters the closed session. We don't have a closed session today, so it'll be it'll stop, when we have a break. Just the housekeeping, obviously keep the rustling to a minimum, and just a friendly reminder to keep your phones on silent, and I think we've covered on the documents. So, welcome everyone. We just have one apology, and it's only a temporary apology from Mayor Hayes, who's just doing a little presentation at Emerald State School, I think. So he will be late this morning, but he's definitely coming along. I don't think there's any other apologies, so I'll just ask if anyone has a leave of absence that they require for our next meeting.
Yes, I do. I leave of absence for parents for the 8th. Yep. Thank you. Forward line. Thank you.
Yeah, so we can have someone move. Councillor Daniels, leave of absence, Councillor Robb, seconded Councillor Wimbledon. All in favour? Unanimous. Lovely.
So, Councillor Daniels, you mentioned the 8th. Did you say the 8th?
Yes, that's right.
I've got it down for the 9th. Oh, sorry, I'm thinking of the committee here. Sorry, you're right here. 8th.
Yep.
8th is finance and infrastructure followed by general meeting.
Yes.
And the 9th is leadership and governance.
Yes.
Thank you.
No problem.
So moving on to confirmation of the minutes from our previous meeting, which was in Blackwater on the 13th of September. The minutes are there. Councillors, obviously the items that we discussed included the lease and operation of the Blackwater Aquatic Centre, proposed amendments to fees and charges of livestock sales at the council facility, London Saleyards, the Central Highlands Regional Council Strategic Documents Register, and there was a closed session item on CHRC's financial contribution to the Blackwater Rolleston Road. Are there any items there?
Chair, can I just draw your attention to, I don't know whether it's correct or not, but at the beginning of that meeting, it's carried 5-0, and then it goes to 4-0, and I'm just wondering what
Changed?
What changed?
It says the councillor has left the
No,
meeting,
hang on. Yeah, no, it mightn't be this meeting.
No,
and then he returns it.
Yeah, I know it is this meeting, but there's another one where.
On page 4, there's one.
Yeah, no, sorry, it's not this meeting, it's
No,
another.
Okay,
There's
yeah, okay, because it does say that councillor Hayes left the meeting.
Yeah, no,
which
but
goes
that's-
back to 4, and then he returned after.
Yeah, that's
conflict
right.
of interest.
Yeah.
But it's in another standing committee.
So, any other queries in relation to the accuracy of the minutes?
I think Councillor Brimble, you should raise that issue now, because I was thinking it was 2 meetings back, it's the last meeting, so if you can raise that, then.
Just on page 5,
Yep.
there's a motion that comes up in between closing going into a closed session and then opening it again. There's a motion in there which was carried, but just check the minutes to make sure that that motion wasn't moved in the closed session and passed in the closed session.
Through the chair, I think what we need to do with this one, if we can have a look at it during the meeting, and we may have to come back and revisit it, because if, in its simplest form, if the transcription of the minutes is inaccurate and the recording can substantiate that, it's just an amendment. If in fact we have done as the minutes described, and we're remiss in making a decision in closed session, that decision has no effect, and we would be looking to remake that decision today. So it's a little bit complicated depending on what the situation is. So we need time to have a look at that behind the scenes as the meeting unfolds. So perhaps might even get Margaret to duck out and get Marty to have a look at that while we're in the meeting so that we can get ourselves organised.
That's right, it's too difficult to remember with any accuracy, so that's the
So, I would suggest to the Chair that we don't deal with confirmation of the minutes until we've got full information.
Right, we'll just leave that till the lab, we'll revisit it for close meeting.
That's
Good noting there, councillor Hamilton.
very, very,
Are there any business arising from the minutes? Anyone have any questions about them? Review of outstanding meeting actions.
so Trish has just advised through the Chair that there's been no meeting actions attached to this agenda, so there's none to review. And we have noted that the meeting actions haven't been updated for the last couple of meetings for which not sure for all, but for a couple of our meetings the schedules haven't been updated. So it might count as problem with a couple of other meetings have since been updated. But the impact of this is that officers haven't had a chance to report on the status of where the implementation of the decisions are at. So even though we can update the schedule, it doesn't mean much without the officers update. So my apologies about the inconvenience.
Okay. No, there's only one outstanding meeting action item that I know that's on replay in my head, and that could be the matter of the Dingo race course and the water connection there. I don't need to see the sheet to know that one's outstanding. And I did raise it at our last meeting to get someone to just chase that up, and I haven't heard anything yet, but I know that is being chased by that community as a matter of urgency. Material personal interest, conflict of interest, personal gifts and benefits. Has anyone got anything to declare? Any petitions? Mr. Mason?
No, through the Chair, no petitions have been received.
Okay, well, we'll move on to corporate services, sale of land, rate arrears. So I'm thinking Shelley or Jason, you introduce?
I might take the opportunity to introduce it, Madam Chair. Councillors, today you're clearly receiving information report in relation to outstanding rates and actions that Council might wish to consider in terms of pursuing, unpaid rates. What we are is bringing to the table, I suppose, mechanisms in the legislation that allow us to sell land for the arrears of rates where there haven't been payments made or arrangements entered into. There are a range of legislative obligations and requirements around that. Generally, where rates remain unpaid for a period in excess of 3 years, Council has the right to proceed to sale on all properties. That period relates to the period relating to vacant land is only a matter of 12 months, so after a period of 12 months we can pursue. What we have identified is that there are a growing number of properties in this list now, and what we propose to do is to proceed to sale for, I suppose, a selection of properties across different rating land uses, so that we might start to get some traction on those rate arrears. You'll see in the report there that the top 10 properties are about $450,000 in total rates arrears outstanding, and the table really outlines, it's similar to what you saw in last month's financial report, but it does outline a position that the rate arrears are continuing to grow. What we have, I suppose, is outlined the fact that there is quite a lengthy process attached to the sale of land for rate arrears, and it will take a period of months. Now, with the discount period closed only last month and our first reminder letters are in the process of going out, we're proposing to come back to the next general meeting at the end of this month with a list of those properties that we propose to go to sale. Now, we're trying to do that in a fairly realistic benchmark, so we might take 10 or a dozen properties straight away and bring those particular properties forward to pursue right through the whole process. And part of this is also about Council honouring its commitment to follow through in relation to unpaid rates and charges, knowing that that value is continuing to rise. I might just ask the Manager of Finance to make some comments in relation to that sale process first, Madam Chair, and then we're happy to answer questions after that.
Thank you, Jason. Thanks, Shelley.
Yes, councillors. So just as Jason alluded to, it is quite a long process. It takes a process of 6 months once a resolution is made by council. Obviously, the process is around making that resolution, advising all the interested parties and allowing time to pay, so 3 months to pay, and then selling or going to auction within that 6 month period. So it not only takes 6 months, but it has to be done, it takes between 3 and 6 months, so it has to be done within that 6 month period as well. So once we start, we have to keep that process going. Any time through that process, if we can stop that process, or we will stop that process once payment in full has been made. So prior to that time, and anything over the last few years, we can enter in a payment arrangement. Once we go into the sale of land, we should stop that process according to our policy only when full payment is made. So we need to go through that process. I guess because, to my knowledge, it hasn't been done at this council, certainly not in my time here, through a sale of land. It is something that we wanted to make sure council was aware we were doing first, and then we will bring back a resolution to council next meeting with the list of properties that we intend to sell, or we intend to go through the process of selling. Obviously, quite often that payment gets made during that period of time, but there is also a process that we have to go around that option, and when we get to that stage as well. We'll obviously be looking at the properties, or the best properties to start out with. We'll only do, as Jason mentioned, pick a strategic few in the beginning, and then we'll go on from there.
So, any questions, Michelle, and Councillor?
So shall I just, so each year you go through this process?
So we haven't been through this process here at council before, I should say in my time here, which has been a little over 3 years now. So probably the effort's been putting on getting to know our ratepayers, giving them the opportunity to get into those payment plans, contacting them through our debt collection agencies as well as ourselves, to make sure we've given them a full opportunity and we've reminded them that they've got payments to make. We've been doing that now for a while. It's time to take the next step.
So there could be properties out there that haven't been paid rates on for 5 or 6 years.
Absolutely, yes.
And these properties we're talking about, any of them on any type of payment arrangement at all?
We won't go forward with anything on any type of payment arrangement, as long as they're sticking to that payment arrangement. In fact, we have to stop any full proceedings or going forward once we start this process. So if there were some court proceedings that were going on and we make a decision to go to sale of land, we have to stop that process and go through the sale.
And should somebody in this 3 month period where you initially advise the property owner that this is the process from here, should they then all of a sudden decide to enter into some sort of repayment arrangement, can that halt the proceedings?
One, according to, we probably bring that one back to council. According to our policy, once we move into this land, we need to pay the payment in full prior to backing back on that. So I guess should we have some option to pay quickly, then we'd have to look at that. But there is a point in time that we can't come back on that. Yeah.
Madam Chair, if I just make a comment there, we'd really be targeting particularly those properties whom we've had no correspondence from at all, who've continued to, either ignore council's intentions to try and get them into arrangements, or advise them that we will continue to pursue the debt from them. They will probably be those properties that we seek to deal with in the first instance, simply because they're making no effort to come and advise council of any circumstances that might be beyond their control, that are inhibiting their ability to pay. So we tend to be trying to work with people mostly as best we can, when they come to the party and saying, look, we're having difficulties, entering into arrangements is a positive step to getting them in the right direction. This is really an action to say the debt can't remain unpaid, council, like any other institution, needs to pursue its unpaid debts, and this is really the hard and firm process that supports that.
So, Madam Chair, just through you to Jason, the, through community consultation recently, there seems to have been, abandoned land, actually. It's not just, you could nearly call it abandoned. So is that in part of the process as well, or do you just go on people who haven't paid their rates?
Back through you, Madam Chair, no, those properties are also what we're looking at as well, where there's been no contact and the properties, sat for a period of years, nothing's happened with it, no payments have been made, no one's been seen at the property for a period of time. We're certainly looking to pursue, some of those examples that have been brought to council's attention through this process, so that, that deals with it in a consistent and repeatable process as far as council is concerned. You can see on there there's 133 properties where no action's been taken. We have about 15,000 assessments, so it is only a small number, but nevertheless it's our obligation to start to pursue those debts.
So, Jason or Shelley, the process now would be a report back to general meeting?
That's right, Madam Chair, yeah. Listing, those properties that we see of interest in pursuing straight away. We'll make sure we've done our due diligence around those properties that we choose as our starting point, just so that we can continue to follow that process, quite professionally in how we track through those particular debts.
Because the reality is, as much as this is a last resort for council, there are many hard-working and ratepayers who pay their rates regularly and on time, and those that are experiencing difficulty. There are many options that council can support them with in terms of entering into repayment arrangements. So there is support for people who need it, and it's difficult to explain to people who are paying their bills on time that there are people who are just not paying. So really, the regular payers are carrying those who are not. So. It's unfortunate that we have to go down this path, but it's unavoidable. So any further questions, councillors, for either Jason or Shelley? Any other comments, Shelley?
No, councillors, we'll go back to you next week just with those properties, next fortnight I should say, with those properties, and we'll be going ahead from here. Obviously we're trying to get this in now. We want to avoid that Christmas period where we possibly can. So I guess we'll come back with a few, simply a few of those next fortnight. But that doesn't stop us in another few months, perhaps after the Christmas period, coming back with another group, and we'll be continually working through these 133 outstanding ones over the coming years.
Madam Chair, if I can just make some comments in closing. I suppose what we have been doing over recent months is really looking at, not only the value of those debts, but where those debts are, and where possible, we're trying to make contact with people in advance to say, are you having problems? Is there something that we can do to work with you? Particularly those in the commercial environment where we know, the local economy's been struggling for a while. We're conscious that as long as we can get commitments out of ratepayers, whether they be commercial or residential, farming or the resources, as long as we're making contact and having a conversation, then at least we know where the debt's at and they know council's position in relation to our actions. We have had some more resources, I suppose, applied to that area to assist with this, and we've really been working at, some of the anomalies that we've been picking up through the rating period as well in terms of our data, trying to make that as clear as we can as we head towards, particularly one of those goals in the new financial system will be to make sure our rating database is as accurate as we can make it, so that we don't have any sort of hidden errors in there, which are going to happen over time. But with 15,000 properties, we're doing our best to sort of work through and make the best of the data that we have and to work with people. So we really see this as a last step, but a necessary step for us to start to pursue.
Chair, can I just have an explanation of on page 10 of our, it's on my page, but actually it's in the last In the second last paragraph before the attachments, Shelley, it says, it's about if the highest bidder at the auction does not agree to buy the land, the land is taken to have been sold to the local government for the reserve price. Do we, as a local government entity, do we really need to be, I mean, this is the catch-22, isn't it, that we end up with the land?
It's something we have to think about as we choose those properties that we're going forward, knowing that we may end up with that land. We have actually just last week been looking at more of the details around this to make sure that what's appropriate in that area. There's some suggestion out there that, well, that's a generally agreed principle, that the interpretation of legislation may be slightly different. However, something we need to consider, because yes, if we put it to auction, certainly we're deemed that it's sold to us, and we'll obviously negotiate with the highest bidder, and then we can go and sell again, obviously at non-reserve price, it then becomes our asset. But yes, that is one of the risks that we need to consider in going forward that land. And perhaps some of that is around not letting the land, the outstanding rates on land get to that point where they're not worth, become worth more than the value of the land. So we sort of need to start working through that and make sure we're on top of progressing these things as they go.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Councillor. Any other questions to Jason or Shelley?
Yeah, just one more, I suppose, to respond to Councillor Ross' issue there. The last thing we need is more land, Councillor Ross. I know the Manager of Commercial Services is working on Council's land strategy as we speak. We're not seeking to add to Council's land bank at all through this exercise. It's more using the mechanisms to deal with the unpaid debts and try not necessarily to gather additional land for us to manage and look after along the way. So that's just an unintended consequence from the process.
Good point. Thank you very much. Thanks very much, Shelley and Jason, for that report. I guess we'll await that for the next general meeting. All right, moving on. The local preference policy review. Jason, I'll hand over to you to introduce that one.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Council, we continue to look at ways and initiatives of how we might deal with our ongoing procurement challenges for the organisation. One of the pieces of policy that relates to our ability to move forward is this particular local preference policy, and today we brought back an amended policy from what Council currently has with some minor changes in it, but also, I suppose, building on the previous conversations that we've had with Council, trying to really appreciate the impact on those, the medium value purchases, so purchases between 15,000 and 200,000, and you'll note in the report that we've really inserted another threshold there around the 100,000 range in terms of trying to deal with, what we know is the majority of our purchases and where they sit in terms of our policy and contract. Part of trying to pursue getting some finality around this local preference clause is going to allow us to move to the next phases of evaluation in terms of the system changes that we've been looking at around the procurement framework that we have through the 360 software product, whereas we need to build in these percentages of preference and also the dollar threshold to help us be able to test the system, but also to engage with some of our suppliers to test that system to see that it's actually going to do what we want it to do before we go to proceed with trying to roll out improved solution and performance to the local marketplace. I will ask Shelley and Dennis to make some comments in a moment, but one of the issues that I do draw to your attention through that report might be what we term an unintended impact of bringing in those preference changes, which will actually, skew some of the weightings and decision making around what I'll call the local decisions in particular towns, but then perhaps inhibit, a local regional decision in another town. So if you're, someone seeking work in Capella, then the weighting for you as a business in Capella will be an advantage in terms of how that's seen by application of the preference. But if you're that same business in Capella and you're trying to compete for work in Blackwater or Emerald, then that may well be seen as an impediment to you getting work on a regional basis. And that's just one of the complications, I suppose, that this policy will add in terms of our ability to look at those local suppliers. There's been a whole range of analysis done there, and I might ask Manager Finance or Procurement Coordinator just to make some observations about what we've learned from looking at the information, and also how we might better deal with our ability to procure through local preference going forward. So Shelley, if you and Dennis would like to make some comments on the report.
Yeah, look, I guess there's three changes to the local preference policy, to the policy that's currently there. One is the definition of local suppliers, and that's what Jason just referred to in terms of, we've referred to it as locality, but in terms of local versus local regional. So if the job's in Capella and you are living and working in Capella, you will get a higher wage than someone from Emerald. However, which is an advantage for those in the local town. However, the flip side of that is when there's work in, say, Emerald, those from Capella will have that slight disadvantage there. So we just need to be aware that there's two sides to that component of it. And it was around the preference for council to try and keep that work within those local regions. Just be aware that there's two sides to that. The other thing that's changed is the level of weighting by the value of contract. So as Jason said, we've split that down into 15,000, 100,000, 200,000, and increase the weighting between that 15,000 and 100,000 to 10% from to 10% from the 5% that it previously was. The final thing that's changed in the policy is the requirement within any tender, so anything over 200,000, the requirement to put within that tender documentation a requirement for at least a minimum of 20% weighting that is local. So in other words, if you're contracting or tendering for something over 200,000, you must prove that you're going to spend 20% of your money locally in the region. So that's in our local preference policy. It's something that we've been putting into those tenders for the last number of months. It seems to be working well. I will flag we haven't got a good system of measuring it at this point, so we'll work on that, but at least putting that in and saying you must spend the money here. So they're the three changes that have been made to the local preference policy. I guess Jason referred to some of the statistics that we've put together. In table 4 on page 13, we've just provided you with some information around the number of purchase orders and the dollar value of those purchase orders at various levels within our organisation. So you can see that at 100,000, that's 99% of our purchase orders are under 100,000, but 61% of the value. So just to give us, that just was there to give us a bit of an indication of the types of purchasing we do and where the time is spent and where the money is spent. I suppose Councillor Dennis, have you got any extra that you want to say? We've been working, one of the reasons we're asking to put this local preference policy in now, we do intend to do further consultation. However, we've done a lot of work in 360 in improving that, and it's waiting for the information from here to be plugged in so that we can continue that work and roll that out and make that easier for suppliers to use and easier for us to use in as well.
Thanks, Shelley. Dennis, anything you wanted to add? I know you've been working really closely with this.
It's, I guess from the last 8 months, we're doing a fair bit of analysis as well of where our actually spend is. 360 now has some good tools to work out locality spend. And it's good to see that there's a slow increase in our local spend compared to outside before. It's always a juggling act when suppliers come on, even some of our local suppliers, if you look at their ABN number, it's registered with their accountant in Brisbane. So you try to work out are they local or not local. So there is a fair bit of, I guess, due diligence we need to do to make sure that those people are actually local. Otherwise, the feedback is starting to improve. I'm starting to see a bit of headway now, so it's good.
Yep, that's good. To the chair. Dennis, with the contract committing to spend 20% in the local area, or I think it was Shelley saying that you've got a good handle on that expenditure. Are you working on processes to, I guess, capture that information to make sure that those contractors are actually adhering to that?
Yes, when we put out the actual tender, we're asking them the detail where this that 20% spend is going to be. Now that may be in accommodation, a local plant hire, maintenance. And well, I guess the next step for us is our project managers managing that project. So that's when we get the, I guess, the payment for the milestones, have a look at where that spend is and confirm that yes, they did stay at the local caravan park, perhaps spend on local coach hire, etc. So we can go from there, but that's another process we just need to bear down.
Okay, thank you.
And I just have a question in relation to the consultation with the community. I understand that this policy is a bit of a moving feast, so I think it's looking good, and I know you've already taken on a lot of feedback that we've received both from your organisation and externally. So that process I think will be really important going forward. And I just wondered if you can give us any insight into how that might look going forward.
The next step for us for the consultation is to go out to the different regions and areas and, in conjunction with Gerard, some of the project lawyers and some with the CHDC as well, take their support on tenders and actually talk them through the process, give them examples and give them how the actual market is trending, like upwards and downwards in different areas, get their feedback. One of the other areas I guess we're looking at is to have a local person who's the, I guess, the helper, the trainer, and actually help the people get on the 360, help them do their actual tenders and their quotes and that side of it. So that's one of the other steps we're looking at as well.
You've had, was the meeting in Springshaw the other day, one of these, the training for, is that procurement around the multicultural centre?
Yeah, I didn't have a meeting with the outside contractors, no, but I had a meeting with the local, our own people,
Yeah.
supervisors, and getting them, talking them through on, I guess, the best way of engaging our locals. So I did not have the outside contractor supplied at this stage.
Any other questions for Dennis or Shelley or Jason?
Just in the considerations, it's one of the notes I made earlier, is will council get value for money for it, so I noticed you can copy it later on in the report, so.
And that's, I guess, one of the areas that we, I guess we need to analyse as we move forward. If we're giving a higher weighting to a local, I guess, contractor, and even though it's not just holding solely on price, it's on the other weighting as well. Some examples I had, a local person when we did our testing, say a water truck was $121, and the person who came in at 132, who was local, won the actual job. So we just need to be a bit conscious of, as we analyse this and check it out, that we are getting value for money and in turn putting that money back locally.
I can just make a comment through the chair as a follow-up to that. The council has always supported local business, and particularly now in these times where it is difficult, it's important to do that even more. And this policy certainly achieves that. It's appropriate for the time, but we must also remember too that it is in its simplest form a type of market intervention, and we must always keep in mind that value for money prospect. But this does give a helping hand to those businesses as they transition their way through the economy and they look at innovation, change business practices, different models to become more and more competitive. But what I'm saying is that there will be a time in future as things turn around and as that pressure for value for money increases where you would look at this policy again and you may tweak some of the parameters to reflect the changed circumstances. But for now, the way things are, I think this demonstrates a real commitment of council to get behind all of its local businesses as much as it can, while responsibly balancing that commitment against the commitment for all ratepayers and value for money. I certainly connect to the council.
And Dennis, just, sorry, councillor.
Chair, just in the options, and it says, based on, the first one, it says leave the policy as it is, the current format, which is this format here now, today, with no change to the definition of local suppliers, based on the proximity of the supplier to the project. So how do you define the proximity?
The proximity is, I guess, where the work is situated. So the work is situated in Dingo, that area around Dingo, that is that proximity of the actual job.
Which begs the question then, Dennis, of further at the beginning, you say in the locality. So how are you defining the what is it, a radius, or is it how are you defining the? Because somebody will ask.
Yeah, the system on 360 at the moment is say 160 kilometres, I think it was, so battery set. If the job is halfway between two proximities, you have the facility to put, say, Dingo and Doringa in there, for example, so it actually encompasses all that area. So I said there is some flexibility in there for that proximity.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just a question, in relation to that consultation with the broader community, what were the timelines around that, Dennis, roughly?
At this stage, I envisage probably early next year before I get those consultations.
Yeah, because I wonder if once that process is undertaken and reviewed, have we got a review of this particular policy scheduled within the next 12 months? Because I sort of sense that maybe we might tweak it a bit after we undertake that consultation.
So, councillor, the review date on this policy is 12 months rather than 2 years, so that we make sure that we do it within that 12 months.
Perhaps through the chair, and the way I'm looking at this is something that's being asked for by the business community, and there's an expectation there in some communities that will be responsive to the space. I think it needs a launch. This is very, very good news for all local businesses, and I think if we can be very proactive and positive about this as a clear message that demonstrates that commitment and support to local business, that's what should happen. And I'm not sure, I could be confused too, but I don't think there's a need to, there's always a need to consult, but I think with a good news story like this, a solid position on supporting local businesses, let's get the news out far and wide. And we should also, if there's a possibility to partner with Central Highlands Development Corporation, they do a lot in that space, supporting local businesses, and they can help us get that message out. That's my views on the consultation. Can certainly occur later, and that people will have questions, as Councillor Rolfe points out, about the mechanics of it, and I think that's where those things can be answered. But this is generally a very good news story.
I agree.
Through the chair, councillors, I know this is slightly, not slightly, it's in line with what we're doing, but it's something that's going to occur over the next few weeks, and that is we're going to call our panels for NDRA emergent works. Going into a bit wet, so we have to look at how we use the panel approach for emergent works as well as local procurement in the same space. I just thought it's prudent to mention that, so we probably could use the same media opportunity to flag that we are holding these panels. And I'm not exactly sure what Jason Akers had discussed with you in that space, but he just casually mentioned it this morning in passing, and I thought it was good that we do maximise the understanding of the locals in terms of those panels as well, and how we intend evaluating and setting them up. So a bit of work in that space, but as I said, it doesn't change the policy, but it's something we have to look at.
Yeah, that's probably a really good point, because there's always a little bit of confusion about this particular policy in the NDRAA works. I think everyone, there's a bit of confusion that it is all treated the same, and the reality is that the NDRAA funding is different, and there are different administrative processes around that, so it's probably a good thing to keep in mind going forward. Thank you. Any other questions,
I was
Councillor?
just going to read the motion, so.
So there are 3 options there, but the recommendation is that the Central Highlands Regional Council adopt the local preference procurement policy as presented. So move Councillor Brimelcombe, seconded Councillor Roth, all in favour? Yep, it's unanimous. Thank you very much, and thanks for all your work in that space. Yeah, it's good to see some progress and some good news for people in the new year to be involved more directly in the consultation process. So thanks very much. Thank you. And I'd like to welcome Councillor Hayes, Councillor Nixon, Councillor Maitland as a third observer. Thanks for joining us. So commercial services, we've got the State Infrastructure Fund maturing the infrastructure pipeline program. Oh, right, sorry. Yeah, so I'm on here, Michelle Webster. I was just trying to work out who KS was.
Kimberly Senior. Thank you, Madam Chair. So the first report for commercial services this morning is a fund program that was announced by the Honourable Jackie Trad, MP and Deputy Premier Minister for Infrastructure, Local Government and Planning on the 9th of September. So this is the fund that provides $20 million. Which forms part of the state government's $2 billion state infrastructure fund. Applications for this fund close on the 21st of October, hence a report before Council today for consideration in regards to the programs that have been put forward as officers' suggestions in line with this fund. So this fund is, I suppose, a fund to assist local government in regards to the preparation of projects into having them what we would call shovel ready. Shovel ready is generally what we talk about, but I suppose investment ready. The program will involve moderate assessment and prioritisation processes through 2 branches of the work. So first being rapid assessment, where the working with industry to rapidly assess the viability and feasibility of proposals and future opportunities identified in the state infrastructure plan. And also early stage assessment, so working with local government to assess the potential of infrastructure proposals to support those that increase economic productivity and enhance livability within council's regions. So, council's been invited to submit new infrastructure proposals for the early stage assessment under the program. The projects that have been put forward for council's consideration. And I will say, as an officer, this is a very good opportunity to assist us with all the preliminary work that needs to be done in getting a project to shovel ready, and that's significant work. So the projects before council's consideration are the Emerald Sale Yards improvements. So we've culminated a number of projects there to improve workplace health and safety outcomes at the sale yards, as well as anticipated growth in cattle process numbers at the sale yards for tick clearing facilities. So councils may be aware, from 1 July with the changes to the biosecurity laws, we now provide tick clearing certification through the Emerald Sale Yards. And it was interesting to receive some statistics earlier in the week, where previously on a month we would clear cattle about 1,100 a month, 1,100 to 1,500. That's now looking at around 5,000 cattle per month, in excess of that. So that will have obviously an impact upon the infrastructure at the sale yard. So with those matters, we're proposing to council for the sale yards improvement that we're looking to refurbish and reconfigure the draft area at the sale yards. That particularly is a workplace health and safety matter, where we wish to actually get the humans dealing with the cattle out from within the area that the cattle are, so up on ramps and what have you. So that's an item that has been identified in the Sale Yards master plan previously. In addition, we're looking at double-decker ramp, an additional double-decker ramp in the Sale Yards that will help with the efficiency and movement of cattle. And, you know, the quicker you can have cattle in and out as well, also assist in regards to animal welfare management. The third thing for Sale Yards being a tick clearing holding area. So if for whatever reason the cattle are not cleared and they may need to be held for a day or two, we don't necessarily have, depending upon what the time frame is, we don't necessarily have areas to hold that cattle. So what we're proposing is the Sale Yards area beyond the railway line. There's substantial land there, but there is needing for appropriate fencing and what have you, so that would be that component. And also a dump ramp, so the dump ramp is an extra wide ramp that makes it quicker and easier for unloading of cattle. The Emerald Council will be aware of the donation of the land from Mr Morowitz, and the Development Corporation put forward the Emerald Entertainment Events and Evacuation Centre. So that's for the development and the construction of multi-purpose facilities. So that would be the actual designs and concepts, etc., to get that to investment ready. Through the infrastructure department, they have put forward the Yamla feeder road. So the intermodal hub needs a major improvement in the feeder network south of Yamla to ensure transport costs are reduced to the minimum. So that proposal is to assist council with the preparation of a study in that regard. And Bedford Weir crossing, investigate the options to reduce the average annual time of closure of that crossing of the Blackwater Road, crossing of the Mackenzie River. So those are proposals for councils for consideration. And as I indicated earlier, we have a deadline of the 21st of October. It's not a overly onerous process to put the submissions in. There are a couple of pages, and always we have the assistance of Kimberley Senior, who does a wonderful job in regards to our grants writing and what have you, to assist us to put forward those projects for consideration.
Thanks, Michelle. Councillors, any questions for Michelle? Yeah, Councillor Robb.
Chair, through you. So, notwithstanding previous state planning documents, and these must have been, there must have been some of these projects that have been put up before. Would that be? I mean, the Bedford Weir has been on the, surely it's been on the list of having something done to it for years. I'm just thinking that when you read through this state infrastructure plan, is there any way that we can maybe prioritise, or is there some way that we can ensure that we actually get things through?
Through this program, or you're talking council in general terms?
Through this program, but then in general terms as well. So, you know,
I suppose in general terms, and we've discussed in the chamber previously in regards to the need to actually prioritise projects that do need, do you know what I mean? We do need to prioritise projects so that officers, do you know what I mean, have that information to move forward in regards to what are the projects that need to be brought to a shovel-ready stage. I think between both organisations, council and the Development Corporation, there certainly is a need in regards to probably improving that aspect of our grant work to have us ready for that. I'll need to get my colleague Gerard to speak in regards to the Bedford Weir, whether that's been under full council or for a program before, I'm not sure. So perhaps Gerard can respond in regards to that.
Through the chair, councillors, what normally happens, or in this case, yes, Bedford Weir is currently in train. We do some options work on it. We're not at shovel-ready stage. So our opportunities to attract funding to fund the final design or the final option that we're considering is always, we'll accept it. So getting back to the context of why is it on the list is if we can get funding for that project to get to shovel ready, yes, we'll take it. and similarly with Yammer. Both those projects are underway. So this is by stealth. We've already committed to it, but if state government gives us money to fund it, then we'll take the money. So it's not that we're not progressing it, it's just simply that we're seeing this as opportunity to attract funding for it.
And I suppose through the chair, we're seeing the trend seems to be we're not getting much notice of some of these programs, and we have 3 weeks or 4 weeks to make submissions. So as an organisation, we need to get to that point where we do have a library of shovel ready, which has been prioritised by council, so we can go bang, bang, bang. We're not there yet, it's something we do need to do, but for this program, from the executive leadership team, these were the programs put forward for council's consideration.
Appreciate it, Michelle. There's no restriction on the number of
Not my understanding.
projects you put forward for design readiness. And how, I know it's only what you're saying, is it's quite a simple process, this initial, when we put in by what is at the end of this month. How do you determine what we're asking for when we don't really know what the total scope or the costs are? Like how
There's no requirement at this point to put costs. This is all the initial preliminary work. I think one of the great benefits of this program as well is that if the projects are successful, they'll be put through the project decision framework. So council will recall in your discussions previously in regards to the asset management work, that as an organisation we've adopted the project decision framework developed by the QTC. So I see this as a great program to assist council in taking us down that path in any case. As a part that we've committed to undertake. So.
That's very interesting. But it's good to have a range of projects across a range of areas. That sort of, as Michelle was saying, we don't really get much notice of opportunities when they do present themselves, and that's where we have fallen down in the past. It's not having those things design ready, shovel ready status to actually maximise those opportunities. So I think that's a really good.
For sure, Chair, but when you read through this, it's the government their intention is for health, transport, information. So, maybe we might miss out on things that are not in their idea of opportunities.
I suppose through the chair, so I can only speak for the Sale Yards project, so I did make contact with the department prior to putting forward the Sale Yards project and discussed my thoughts in regards to the projects and why we wanted those, workplace health and safety, increase of cattle traffic and what have you, and the department was very supportive of those projects going in. So
You should be able to throw in animal welfare as well.
yeah, certainly we will within our
That would be in the
submissions.
health scheme of things.
Yep.
Councillor McAvoy.
Yeah, through the chair, thank you. Would it be timely to bring up the rail infrastructure through town and maybe look at the feasibility of that with mining sector improving slightly and Adani now securing some further hopes? We're going to see potentially the rail through town, also with the flood mitigation, the rail bridge. Is that a project that we could put on the table and let them know that we're considering it?
It has been discussed previously, and I don't know that it's come up as one of the high priorities, just purely simply because there's been so many unknowns around it.
I think through the chair, sorry for interrupting, we probably should make sure everyone's got the latest version of our project prioritisation work that's been undertaken. And that will change. The intent behind that was to work out what the higher order projects were. And then, as Councillor Roll points out, specific programs come along that might have certain targets. It may be that you have to use your project number 4 and 6 because they fit better with the intent of the funding program. And they're the sort of tweaks and adjustments we should make as a council. But I think we need to have continually in front of us or easily accessible that latest body of work And if there's a view that that should be amended or changed, then we can workshop that as a council in conjunction with CHDC or have CHDC input or overlay into it and then present it to council for consideration. There's a few different ways we can work on it. That's something we need to make sure we've got handy at all times. Madam Chair.
Proposed to the Chair, Councillor McIndoe, so I suppose in my mind the question would be so is that a council project or is that a project that perhaps advocacy should be commenced in regards to state infrastructure? Is it necessarily something that fits into this, or it's much bigger and much broader than that? And, that's where the political advocacy should come in regards to commencing that project, and then down the path where that can then slot into the different.
If I can respond through the chair, I think Councillor McIndoe is picking up on the intent of that particular program with the 3 high order areas that the state is concerned about, and trying to respond to that. And the challenge we've got is we're trying to identify some quick win and some longer-term council projects that may be benefited from this funding. And I think government does have a difficulty in being able to spend money at times, and there's a high chance that some of these projects could get a Guernsey, and that'd be a great outcome for us. The answer to the questions or the discussion is, if we're more organised and we have our priority list and we can always sit down and plan and strategise more about how to meet the intent of the program. For now, and we've recognised already through Michelle's report, the timeframes just aren't there. It means there's a lot more pressure on us to be organised and have the early discussions. Don't really have a chance this time. 21st of October is the deadline. We've done the best to come up with a few programs, may or may not meet the funding criteria, but we'll give it a shot. But I think if we could take away from that, those things like rail through Emerald are important matters. Council's got to balance that up against, in the absence of this program, it's got to balance it up. Does it advocate for that? Does it advocate for the 10 things that it's advocating for, or does it remain quiet on 4 of those to push the other 6? And that's the sort of strategy discussion we've got to regularly have. But when a program comes along that could support one of those issues we may have been quiet on, we should seize the opportunity. So Councillor McIndoe, I think we've missed the boat in terms of having, I think we have anyway, in terms of being able to put something credible together at the last minute. But your comments are timely reminder about how we need to be more strategic and organised with these funding programs, and the way that government does business, the state and federal government are a lot more reactive. And these programs, we probably know that they're coming up through budgets, and we need to start to read that material and plan how we're going to respond prior to the media announcement coming out by the relevant minister. So I think there's an opportunity for us to take the pressure off if we can be a bit more strategic. I know it's a long-winded response, but I wanted to get it out because I think we're all talking about the same things, just the coordination of it all.
Through the chair, with the sale yards, was there some talk to move the sale yards at one stage?
Correct.
So will we still look at doing this upgrade if that's on the? Yep.
Through the Chair, Councillor Lacey, is absolutely some aspects of it, workplace health and safety and animal welfare management, priority matters at sale yards. I have been in discussions with the Agents Association. We have had an increase in regards to workplace health and safety issues at the sale yards, so we're doing whatever we possibly can to correct some of those matters. And in actual fact, we actually had at Council's initiation, agriculture inspector from Workplace Health and Safety at the sale yards yesterday, who also pointed out a couple of matters for us, one matter of immediate rectification, but generally the view the sale yard was in not too bad a shape, which was good news, but it's something in our radar currently, and it's something that we'll continue to progress in regards to making sure that we can have those sale yards as safe as we possibly can for the workers who have to work within that facility, as well as our responsibilities in regards to animal welfare management.
With the sort of money that's kicking around, is it worth looking at that option to move it sooner?
there have been discussions previously in regards to moving the sale yards, and that certainly, we held a sale yard stakeholder workshop in February 2016. And that certainly was, conversation, and we have a number of aspects that if we were to build a new facility, what the agents and stakeholders at the sale yards would like to see within that facility. There are no funds in the budget presently for any design or concept work in regards to a new facility. Land to the west of Emerald, which previously was leased by the Sale Yards Board, has been freeholded from the state government and is now in ownership of council as potentially an option. You may note within the 15-16 operational plan was a deliverable in regards to identifying proposed land for a new sale yard facility. I've not progressed it at this point because where there is no funding to do concept or design, I don't see the point of identifying land until we know if, first of all, if we're going to build a new facility, and secondly, what that facility would look like.
I suppose I'm looking at the design and concept work that needs to go into this anyway.
Sorry?
So we're going to do a draft area, double-decker ramp, all this stuff will need concept and design work. There'll be funding that to be spent.
But not significant in regards to a new facility. So the draft area is, common knowledge, it's a lot bigger than it needs to be. Quite okay to, reconfigure in the current site. The double-decker ramp is in regards to the efficiency, and as we see more cattle coming through the sale yard, that just assists with the efficiency of getting cattle in and out of the facility.
No, but it's more, sorry, through the chair, it's on the draft area, etc., and the roofing is actually a maintenance job. And it's actually on the master plan as well, the sale yards. So the actual, the facilities that need to be done to take advantage of the tick clearing that's happening, and real increase in tick clearing through this yard is more a, you wouldn't get a new sale yards built and, design work done, build a new sale yards anywhere else in time. You'd still have to do something to this yard to actually facilitate what's happening out there.
And I think the conversation around a new sale yards as a whole is something for another day. And certainly, like you're saying, Michelle, I think the pressure is on us in regards to some of those workplace health and safety issues and animal welfare type things that we just, it's not a big investment, I believe, we'll be looking at for this, but certainly to not progress with this because we might build another sale, I think would be a bit short-sighted. So
the other comment through the chair is in response to Councillor Lacey, and this was a comment made by the former council, and it depends on the technique that you went in about, or the process you went about building new sale yards facility, but there was always a view that a lot of the material could be salvageable, reused at another site, and you should keep that in mind too. It needs to be invested in as an important piece of infrastructure in its present location, but there is the possibility for either resale or reuse at another site if that was to happen.
I think also, Madam Chair, yesterday the inspector did identify the draft area as an area of concern, and we do need to get the workers away from the camp. So as an officer who's responsible for workplace health and safety at the site, absolutely it's something I must recommend to you that we do need to invest in and make some changes in regards to particularly that piece of infrastructure.
any other questions in relation to any of the other projects? The recommendation is there, councillors, that the Central Highlands Regional Council endorse the following projects for submission under maturing the infrastructure pipeline program. The projects for the four of them are listed there. Is someone happy to move that? Move Councillor Roll, seconded Councillor Daniels, by Whisker Charlie. All in favour? Unanimous. Thanks very much. And look forward to hearing how they go, Michelle.
Yes.
Councillors, we can just revisit quickly in relation to that item in relation to confirmation of the previous meeting minutes. I might just hand over to Scott just to run us through the issue that you raised, Councillor Brindle, in relation to the handling of that motion and did it occur during closed session. I think Scott's got some clarity around that.
I do, thanks Madam Chair, and I can happily report we've sought confirmation from Minutes Secretary, Mrs Kelly Stevenson, and the decision was actually made in the full committee meeting. It's been recorded wrong in the minutes, so our job is easy in that we just need to amend the minutes, and that will simply see if you go to page, if you can go to page 7 or page 5 of the minutes. I'll give you a chance to get back there if you're electronic and you've got to use your finger really fast to go all the pages back. I think there's a faster way. You can use the slide bar down the bottom. But if you get back to that section that says the meeting was closed at 9:48 AM and then the decision is recorded, what we'll be doing is we'll be taking forward where it says the meeting was reopened at 10:01 AM, and that will be placed at the end of the executive summary but before the resolution, because that's actually what happened. It's just been reflected wrong in the minutes. So, Madam Chair, you are right now to encourage the resolution to confirm the minutes subject to that amendment from someone or a councillor who was present at the meeting.
Right, so Councillor Brimblecomb's happy to move confirmation of those minutes subject to that amendment as discussed, and seconded Councillor Roll. All in favour? Unanimous. All right, so just get back to
Page 39, I think it is. And that's Michelle again.
All right, so the Arena Digital, this is an exciting
Thanks, Madam Chair.
revolution.
Council's been approached by Arena Digital in regards to providing Saleyard television within the Saleyards facilities. This Saleyard television provides a free digital information screen, which is located at the Saleyards. They indicate to us that generally they would position that television within the Canton area, but we have suggested to them that more patronage in regards to looking at the digital screen, it'd be better placed out in the facility somewhere, so we have made those comments to them. The Saleyards is able to provide personalised content and real-time messaging with this television medium. The installation and maintenance of the information system is at no cost to council. The revenue is derived from local businesses subscribing to advertising through that facility. There are a number of other Saleyards in Queensland as well as Australia that have this facility installed at their Saleyards. In addition, the agreement between council and Arena is for a period of 2 years. As I say, council has some control over in regards to the content, and there's also actually control in regards to any what we would perceive as any inappropriate advertising. We have some say in regards to that as well. The 2/3 of the program would be reserved to council to promote our products and also sales, any information that we wish to provide. There's some live streaming of other information from the industry as well. And also there is the opportunity, should the Saleyards, not that I think that we would necessarily want to go out and promote this, but should the Saleyards put forward an advertiser for the program, the Saleyards can also derive 50% of that revenue from that advertiser. So I suppose there is a revenue opportunity for the Saleyards as well. I just and put it forward for council's consideration. I think it's just another mechanism for us to provide information in real time to our stakeholders and vendors at the Saleyards. No cost to council, so although it is a 2-year agreement, in our recent visit last week to Charles Town Saleyards, did speak to them about this service. They had been approached. Their council had determined not to go forward because they weren't happy with the two-year agreement in regards to it. So I put it forward as a recommendation to council. I think it's an additional information medium for us at the Saleyards, so happy to take any other questions.
Councillors, any questions? I do know that Meat and Livestock Australia, I think it was this week or last week, ran a workshop or forum in Brisbane, and it was all about the digital age upon us in herd management and, livestock, how we communicate, this type of information. And I know over 300 people turned up to that workshop. So it's the digital age is definitely upon us, and they say the next Steve Jobs will probably come from the agricultural sector, but let's hope that it is the case, and hopefully from Australia. But how does somebody access, do they get a username and password to access this information? Do you log into a website? I don't understand how, say someone at Capella who's sent cattle to the sale yards might want to check on sale prices that day. Is it about getting real-time information from the sale yards so you don't have to ring your agent, or is it to cut out the delay of market reports, which sometimes can be up to 24 hours old? Like, where's the benefit?
I suppose whilst at the sale yards getting that information, I don't know, do you mean that's not been discussed with me at all, Madam Chair, in regards to, do you mean if you're not at the sale yards, your ability to log in? Council obviously will have a login so we can control the information we want to go through. But yeah, then having real-time feeds from the industries like MLA and Australian Livestock Markets, as an example. So I think it's just more, do you mean it provides an avenue for businesses to advertise?
So will sale data be available through that? Sorry, will sale data be available, like, on the screens, or is it,
We're thinking that currently you will know at the sale yards we have the digital display in regards to the prices, which is the information coming from the weigh apps. We're of the understanding that this television will allow us to feed that information in as well.
So it gets fed. So who controls all the data though? Council or?
We would control our data.
Oh,
yes.
And then you control.
So data coming from MLA or ALMA would be controlled by Arena TV, or representatives from those organisations are logging in and putting forward their information.
Yeah. Councillor.
I do.
You're right, I'm just passing on the message.
I do have a concern in that it's without fee to council, which means to my mind that Arena, and it is basically, from what I gather, it's just an advertising portal. So I do question whether council will have the ability to actually put a lot of data onto that, up-to-date data. Because Arena has to pay for it, has to make money out of it, so they're going to, where we at one stage in the Sale Yards Committee want to renew the actual advertising around the sale yards, I would suggest that Arena's going to say, well, they're going to put the advertising up on their screen, and it'll be a cost to people who advertise. That's how they make money out of it. So I do wonder about what I would like to see more information about what the council can actually contract.
So through the chair, Councillor Robb, so this is the agreement that's been provided, the agreement's been provided to me. So one of the clauses in there is that 2/3 of the program will be reserved for clients, so council, to promote any products, productions and promotions that it wishes. The company agrees to so Arena agreed to design, showcase any information the client provides, and will at no cost to the client produce all materials supplied by the client, totally free of charge, in bold, if that makes a difference. The company reserved the right to promote any business not aforementioned in clause 5, being a maximum of 1/3 of the program content. So I suppose, so in a typical 60-minute program, 40 minutes minimum for the client information and a maximum of 20 minutes for the company. So I suppose if we think of the airport, it's no different in that context to the digital advertising that occurs, other than that we don't have own council content within them. So the airport, we use Takeo as one of our major companies who look after the advertising at the airport. We don't do that ourselves. Council doesn't do that ourselves. We have an agreement with that advertising supplier.
So have the sale yards committee had an opportunity to review the proposal, or is it coming to us first?
No, and the CEO gave me the option actually to put that before the committee. I don't, as opposed to bringing it to council, I don't see that the sale yards coordination committee, its charter is not for decision making in regard to operational matters. However, there is a sale yards coordination committee meeting on the 24th of October, if I'm correct. So no issue whatsoever in having it considered at that meeting.
I understand they wouldn't be expected to make a decision, but certainly that feedback, I believe that is really would be valued, as to what they think. Councillor Rock or Councillor Nixon, what would your thoughts be?
Yeah, I would appreciate to be able to read through the contract and have a little short discussion. Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like we've got nothing to lose. I think, from what we've seen today, I think it sounds great. And it may be a way to sort of modernise the sale yards and move into that digital area, but just understanding what that might mean for some of those other issues that Councillor Ross raised. And is there support, by the agents? Are they able to use it, or other local businesses? I'm not so sure. So
happy to ensure that that's put on the agenda.
Thank you. Any other comments?
So sorry, just to clarify, Madam Chair, then will we bring a report back to council for a decision, or can the decision making be left with?
Well, if I could just interject there through the chair, there's the information I've been provided is that the sale yards committee, and I know that's not the proper name of it, I don't think it is anyway, their role, and you might need to help me out here, Michelle, but it's to deal with issues and receive feedback from agents predominantly. Is that right?
It's a stakeholder advisory committee involving stakeholders to assist Jermaine and inform council in regards to our operation and management of the sale.
Okay, well, with that, then I think this committee should delegate the decision to the sale yards committee. That's my advice. Otherwise, if that committee only had a limited scope, the proper way to do things would be to get the feedback and then make the decision here at the committee level, because obviously there's an agreement between council and the company. But I think I'm happy to recommend that we delegate the decision-making ability to the committee if the committee sees fit.
I would see, Chair, as being chair of that committee, that we could take it to the next meeting, to the next sale yards committee meeting, and then the recommendation come back to council or to this meeting.
Well, and that can happen. Probably one of the frustrations I've noticed with our committee structure is that there's not much autonomy for the subcommittees, and they're not subcommittees, but we've got the airport committee, sale yards committee, we've got the aquatic centre committee, we've got the there's a half a dozen committees, and the intentional philosophy behind those was to let them deal with a number of matters, and if there was a need for a decision to be made, they'd make a recommendation to the parent committee. We're handling a lot of business, and it's an opportunity to delegate if you see fit, but it's up to us how we want to do that. if the scope of the sale yards committee or subcommittee is broad enough, and by the description provided by the general manager, it sounds as though it is, you could delegate the decision-making power of this matter to that committee, or, as you point out, Councillor Roll, ask for a recommendation, bring it back to this committee, and we make a decision. So, Madam Chair, it's up to this committee how they want to handle it.
I seek advice from councillors. There's 3 of them in this room that are on the sale yards committee, so what are your thoughts? How would you like to handle it?
Judy, I would agree with Chris, because the powers of decision making really lie in this arena, not in that advisory committee. I would like to see it discussed at that advisory committee level and then the recommendation brought back here. And then it'd only be a rubber stamp, but it's a legal rubber stamp.
Yeah.
I think that's the process.
I agree with that approach as well.
All right, so the recommendation will be that we
We'll get a movement sector along the lines that council seek advice from its, and we'll put the proper name of the sale yards committee and
That's coordination.
seek advice regarding this proposal from the sale yards coordination committee. This the seek advice regarding the proposal from that committee, and that this report be represented to a forthcoming finance and infrastructure committee meeting. Takes the pressure off of having to be the next meeting. It might be a couple of meetings away, depending on time. Or they may ask for more information. It could go and get kicked around for a little while. That's on the screen there, Madam Chairman, if you can track it.
Okay, councillors, we'll have a look at that. Is there someone having a move that? Move councillor Brindle, seconded councillor Robb, all in favour? Unanimous. Thanks very much. Moved councillor Brindle, seconded councillor Robb.
Thank
The
you.
decision will be unanimous.
Excellent.
It's 10:22 a.m. councillors, and we have had an invitation from our General Manager of Commercial Services, Michelle Webster, ahead of our next agenda item, which is in relation to Advanced Aviation's airport hangar. There is an opportunity for us to actually go out on site and have a look at that. We do have plenty of time today. It could take about an hour. So given that it's 10:22, we could just adjourn the meeting, maybe have a quick bite, fill our paperwork out, and then scoot out to the airport and undertake that inspection into this agenda item. And I know Councillor Lacey, you have another appointment, but we can certainly excuse you. You have seen fit to, so the councillor's happy to do that. All right, well, I might just adjourn the meeting, and you probably need your driver's licenses and a few other bits of ID to get through the security.
Thanks, Madam Chair. As you'll be going airside, in essence, you will need a temporary